Do you feel sorry for Fergie? Get your calls in now. Let us know your thoughts. Prince Andrew is no longer going to be using his Duke of York title over his links with convicted offender Jeffrey Epstein.
The long-held illusion of a unified York family, a strategic presentation of solidarity despite divorce, is shattering in full view of the public, revealing fractures too deep to conceal. At the center of this collapse is Prince Andrew, whose reputation lies in irreparable tatters, his royal titles suspended, and his presence within the monarchy all but erased. The most telling sign of his complete isolation is the apparent withdrawal of his once fiercely loyal ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. For decades, their cohabitation at the Royal Lodge and their united front served as the cornerstone of their narrative, an amicable partnership that weathered the storms of scandal. Now that cornerstone has crumbled. Fergie's prolonged absences from their shared mansion signal a profound and deliberate separation, a silent but powerful retraction of her steadfast support. This rift extends to the next generation, as their daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, who once defended their father with unwavering filial loyalty, are now quietly but unmistakably pulling away. The very individuals who formed his last line of defense are retreating, leaving Andrew entirely isolated and marking the definitive end of the House of York as a functional entity within the royal framework.
Do know about Prince Andrew and the businessman and convicted child offender Jeffrey Epstein. We know Prince Andrew got to know Jeffrey Epstein in 1999. We know that he saw him fairly regularly for some.
The relentless onslaught of scandals has finally exacted an unbearable emotional toll, pushing even the most loyal members of the York family to their breaking point. Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, who for years staunchly defended their father, are now said to be seeking professional counseling to cope with the relentless chaos emanating from their parents' lives, a clear indication that the burden has become too heavy to bear alone. As new allegations continue to surface, the very foundation of their filial loyalty is being tested, forcing them to question how far their support can realistically extend. Meanwhile, Sarah Fergie Ferguson, the perennial survivor, is preparing for her next act. Officially stripped of her royal title yet undeterred, she is reportedly gearing up for what could be her most dramatic reinvention yet, another tell-all interview, with speculation swirling that she is poised to sit down for a fourth time with Oprah Winfrey. This would be the latest in a long history of leveraging public humiliation into opportunity, having previously turned to Oprah in the wake of her 1996 divorce, the 2010 Cash for Access scandal, and her exclusion from the 2011 royal wedding. Each appearance was a masterclass in crisis management, spinning disgrace into a narrative of resilience. However, this time the stakes are infinitely higher. With the York facade in ruins and her daughters struggling, the world watches to see if her signature survival tactic will work once more, or if this final spin will be her most desperate and consequential yet.
Just an exceptional, it was the greatest honor of my life. And the last, I've really missed her badly in the recent months because she was there.
Each of Sarah Ferguson's previous televised confessions meticulously crafted a persona of a woman misunderstood, emotionally raw, and perpetually seeking redemption, framing her scandals as chapters in an ongoing personal saga rather than calculated missteps. However, this potential fourth interview threatens to be fundamentally different in both tone and objective. This time, she isn't merely defending a single action or seeking sympathy for a specific humiliation, but is strategically positioning herself to rewrite her entire legacy, from a scorned outsider to a wronged figure finally speaking her truth. Fueling this defiant narrative is a profound sense of abandonment. Fergie has reportedly confided in friends that she was unfairly punished and made a scapegoat by the palace, while other more protected figures escaped scrutiny, directing her blame squarely at the men in gray suits, the powerful anonymous courtiers and advisors she believes orchestrated her exile. This defiance is a well-worn part of her character, evidenced by her past insistence on using the Her Royal Highness title long after it was revoked. Yet beneath the familiar bravado and the desire for public vindication lies a more urgent and pragmatic question that no interview can fully resolve. Stripped of her title, potentially losing her home at Royal Lodge, and without Prince Andrew's financial backing, how will Fergie, who has long operated within the orbit of extreme wealth, actually maintain the lavish lifestyle to which she has become accustomed? The interview may be her weapon of choice, but the battle for her financial survival is just beginning.
That's it then. for Fergie, do you think? Is that the last that we will see of her in public life, at least?
Well, no, I think never say never with Fergie. She's a great survivor. She will quietly do things under the radar. I mean, there are plenty of people, particularly in places like China or the Middle East, who are quite happy to.
This passage reveals Sarah Ferguson as a master of survival economics, where her potential tell-all interview is framed not as a heartfelt confession, but as a calculated financial lifeline in the face of collapsing royal support. Described by insiders as a formidable operator, Fergie's lifelong pattern has been to leverage her unique position, a blend of scandal-tinged notoriety and public sympathy, into monetizable opportunities, a skill honed through decades of navigating disgrace. Her global network of wealthy contacts, particularly in the Middle East, has historically provided lucrative consulting fees, but the narrative suggests this foundation is now perilously unstable, as the very royal brand that gave her value disintegrates around Andrew. Consequently, the interview is positioned as a strategic pivot, a direct attempt to turn public curiosity into cash and replace the vanishing income from her traditional aristocratic networks. The analysis concludes that, based on her proven track record of spinning disaster into opportunity, this gambit is likely to succeed in the short term, reinforcing her long-standing understanding that the public's fascination with her tumultuous life is, itself, a marketable asset, ensuring her survival even as the traditional structures of the monarchy she was once part of actively cast her out.
Of York has been removed as a patron of a children's hospice following her email correspondence with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The charity Julia's House says it would be inappropriate for the Duchess to continue as.
This passage masterfully frames Sarah Ferguson not merely as a survivor, but as a sophisticated entrepreneur of her own narrative, whose entire post-royal career has been a masterclass in crisis capitalization, seamlessly pivoting from children's author to TV host and Netflix producer, with each new role strategically launched on the heels of a fresh scandal to monetize her perpetual redemption arc. This established pattern makes her current situation uniquely dangerous for the royal family. A cornered Fergie, stripped of her title and facing financial precarity, is at her most unpredictable and motivated, possessing a lifetime of intimate knowledge that, if sold freely in a tell-all, could expose the institution's inner workings and secrets, dragging far more than just Andrew's reputation into the mud. Meanwhile, Prince Andrew's world undergoes a parallel but passive collapse, his grandeur symbolized by the Royal Lodge now inverting into a looming liability, a white elephant whose financial and symbolic weight underscores his utter powerlessness and isolation. Together, their trajectories form a perfect storm. He is trapped and shrinking, while she is agile and incentivized to talk, creating an asymmetrical threat where the monarchy's greatest vulnerability is no longer the scandal itself, but the desperate, seasoned storyteller who has always known how to profit from the fall.
Now, it means his ex-wife has also now lost her Duchess title and will revert to her maiden name, Sarah Ferguson. Now, we want to know if you feel sorry for her after this royal shakeup, or, considering that she's faced her own controversies over Epstein, do you have very...
With the new king enacting fiscal restraint and deliberately steering the monarchy away from scandal, the Duke of York's tenure at the prestigious Royal Lodge appears increasingly precarious. Speculation is growing that his residence may be sacrificed as both a cost-cutting measure and a symbolic break from the past, with rumors pointing to a potential relocation to the Castle of May in northern Scotland. This alternative property, a stark and windswept former possession of the Queen Mother, represents a profound demotion in both comfort and status. Its isolation is severe, situated 6 miles from the nearest village and close to John O'Groats, a town notoriously branded as Scotland's most dismal. Complicating this potential exile is the firm stance of Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, who has reportedly made it abundantly clear to her inner circle that she has no intention of accompanying him. This position unravels her long-cultivated image as Britain's most loyal ex-wife, revealing that her fidelity has always been fundamentally transactional. Her loyalty was contingent upon Andrew's provision of stability and royal standing, which prompted her vigorous defense of him during better times. However, once he fell from public grace, she pragmatically reinvented her life abroad, and throughout their relationship, she consistently leveraged his connections for her own financial advancement, demonstrating that her allegiance was a currency spent, not a principle upheld.
Children's charity is distancing itself from Sarah Ferguson. after an email the Duchess of York sent to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in 2011, calling him a, quote, supreme friend, resurfaced. Child Hospice Center Julia's House has issued a statement confirming they'll no longer be.
The relationship between the Duke and Duchess of York, long perceived as an arrangement of mutual convenience rather than deep affection, is facing its ultimate test, now that Prince Andrew has been stripped of his royal titles, military affiliations, and the financial and protective shield of the crown. He is discovering the stark limits of Sarah Ferguson's famously transactional loyalty. The reverberations of this collapse extend acutely to their daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, now 37 and 35. The sisters have spent years navigating the complex task of carving out identities distinct from their parents' tumultuous shadow. Raised with the privileges of royalty but denied the official duties granted to their cousins, they cultivated a delicate balance between occasional public appearances and their own private careers within London's elite social set. However, the profound disgrace of their father and their mother's perennial association with controversy have forced a decisive shift. Their recent actions speak volumes. Last Christmas, Beatrice pointedly aligned herself with the future of the monarchy, joining King Charles and the Prince of Wales at Sandringham, while Andrew and Fergie spent the holiday alone. Even more telling was Eugenie's uncharacteristic silence on social media, breaking a years-long tradition of public birthday tributes to her mother, a silence insiders attribute to a relationship grown strained under the weight of perpetual scandal. Eugenie, once a fierce defender of both parents, is now described as emotionally exhausted and determined to shield her own young family from the relentless chaos. This resolve is compounded by a cloud of financial suspicion, exemplified by a mysterious £25,000 payment from one of Andrew's associates that landed in her account, an incident which, while implying no wrongdoing on her part, created a public relations nightmare by once again tethering the York name to questionable finances. As the dust settles, the path forward for the sisters within the modernized, streamlined royal family appears more uncertain than ever, their positions precarious, and their legacy inextricably and perhaps tragically linked to the downfall of their parents.
Now, Lizzie, you're a friend of Sarah Ferguson. I believe you've contacted her this morning?
Yeah, I've reached out because I knew we were going to be talking about her today. I thought it was the right thing to do. And yes, look, I feel sorry for the victims of Epstein.
King Charles has drawn a definitive, if somewhat awkward line regarding his niece's place within the monarchy. While Beatrice and Eugenie will be permitted to retain their royal titles as a matter of birthright, they are unequivocally excluded from the vision of a slimmed-down monarchy and will not be elevated to the status of full-time working royals. This presents a cruel paradox for the sisters, who have often borne the brunt of public judgment for their parents' transgressions while being denied the official platform to forge a redemptive legacy. This challenge is compounded by scrutiny of their own endeavors, such as Eugenie's anti-slavery collective, which has faced criticism for its financial model, raising substantial sums while reportedly distributing very little, leading to accusations that its royal affiliation may be leveraged more for reputation laundering than tangible impact. Despite this relentless turmoil, the emotional core of the situation remains immutable. Beatrice and Eugenie's love for their parents is not in question. However, in this complex family dynamic, love does not equate to unconditional loyalty or a willingness to be pulled down by their sinking ship. The upcoming Christmas holiday will serve as a critical public litmus test. Should the sisters choose to celebrate with the wider royal family at Sandringham, their absence from Royal Lodge would send an unmistakable message that the House of York is formally fractured, a profound and humiliating public rejection for both Andrew and Fergie by their own children. Yet ever-resilient Sarah Ferguson is not prepared to fade quietly into the background. According to Confidantes, she is actively strategizing to seize control of her narrative, with plans for a media offensive potentially including interviews, a memoir, or even a documentary. Having observed the lucrative path carved by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex in monetizing their royal discontent, Fergie understands that there is a voracious global appetite for truth-telling from within the palace walls, and she now positions herself as the ultimate insider, ready to trade her story for a chance at redemption, relevance, and revenue. The greatest obstacle in this potential reinvention, however, is the formidable issue of credibility. Sarah Ferguson's well-documented history of embellishment and financial opportunism will inevitably cast a long shadow over her claims, providing the palace and the press with immediate grounds for dismissal. Yet such skepticism is unlikely to deter her. Instead, she will strategically recast it as evidence of her authenticity. She will frame her narrative as that of a woman profoundly wronged, betrayed by an inflexible institution, cruelly misrepresented by the media, and ultimately abandoned by the very family she loyally, if often inconveniently, defended for decades. Regardless of the palace's disapproval, this compelling story of rebellion and redemption will undoubtedly captivate a global audience. Fergie possesses an asset no royal communications team can manage: the raw, first-hand account of life as an insider turned outcast, a story only she can tell with such theatrical flair. This is in many ways the culmination of the York dynasty's unique and tumultuous role within the monarchy. They have always been the rebellious, unpredictable branch of the royal family tree, a captivating but volatile mix of glamour and scandal, charm and controversy, whose very existence has consistently defied the staid conventions of the House of Windsor. Through countless crises, they have demonstrated a remarkable, almost stubborn, capacity for survival. However, the current predicament carries a distinctly final tone. The walls are not merely closing in, they have nearly converged. Andrew's public career is irrevocably over, his reputation beyond salvage. Fergie's title as a Royal Highness is a relic of the past, and her financial footing remains perpetually unstable. Most tellingly, their daughters, now mature adults wearied by a lifetime of tumult, are consciously seeking peace and stability beyond the toxic orbit of their parents' making. This time, it appears the Yorks' notorious luck has finally run out, leaving them isolated in the wreckage of their own creation. The York family now stands as a broken entity, its members connected not by mutual affection or a sense of duty, but by the collective ruins of their former royal lives. This precarious situation culminates in a critical choice for Sarah Ferguson. If she decides to publicly tell her story, the central dilemma becomes the extent of the destruction she is prepared to unleash upon the monarchy in order to shield herself. Her entire history suggests a single, unwavering principle: self-preservation comes first when the institution abandons you. In acting on this instinct now, she holds the power to not only secure her own future, but to finally demolish the last vestiges of the York name in the process. Regarding her next move, a discreet withdrawal seems improbable. A high-stakes television interview is a definite possibility, offering immediate publicity. However, a comprehensive memoir is perhaps the more likely and powerful avenue, allowing her to meticulously frame her narrative for maximum impact. Having witnessed other royals profit from their departures, she understands that her insider's perspective is a valuable commodity. Her story is the one remaining asset she fully controls, and she appears ready to leverage it, regardless of the fallout for the family she leaves behind.